Let's go back in time. Think about what got us into wrestling in the first place. Where we would turn on the TV and we would see all these colorful, larger-than-life characters. Macho Man, Ric Flair, The Rock, Stone Cold, and they would look like superheroes come to life, beating up all these jobbers on TV, such that at the pay-per-view, when they fought each other, it was mind-blowing. Then you would go to a live event surrounded by fellow mainstream fans, and when the Taker's music hit, boom! And here comes the 7-foot phenom that you saw on TV walking out of the fog in real life. It was mind-blowing. Remember, that's the kind of stuff that got you into wrestling in the first place. It wasn't work rate. It wasn't 4.5-star matches. It was that. I mean, at this point, do you even remember that? Do you even remember what it was like during the boom periods? It feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? And you want to know why? You want to know why it feels like a million years ago? You want to know why when you go to a wrestling event now, you're like sitting like this and it doesn't feel the same? It's because, in my opinion, it is being destroyed by toxic fanboys who have upended mainstream wrestling and are trying to reinvent it as something else. Almost everything that we got us into wrestling in the first place, the larger-than-life characters, the incredible physiques, the electrifying mic skills, the edgy storylines leading up to the pay-per-view, these fanboys seem to despise these things, and they seem to be wanting to tear down what made wrestling popular in the first place and rebuild it as this niche geek thing that's made only for them. And because we like the things that they seek to destroy, they want us out of the fan base, which is why you see toxic fanboys driving away casual fans. Not all fanboys are toxic, most aren't, but under the control of these toxic fanboys, wrestling has been twisted into something unrecognizable. Instead of the larger-than-life product that captivated us in the first place, if you go to a wrestling event now, it's all these little indie jobbers bouncing around, doing anime moves, and kicking out of everything. Which begs the question, why? Why do these toxic fanboys like this? What's their vision for wrestling? Why do they want what they want? Why do they do what they do? What's their criteria for liking a wrestler? Why don't they take a shower? I don't really understand it, but I have made some observations as to how these toxic fanboys seem to despise what made us like wrestling in the first place. People have always used wrestling as an escape. Just like with movies, music, and video games, after a long day of work or school, they go home, they turn on Nitro to watch the NWO taking over WCW, and as Kevin Nash is jackknifing the shit out of someone, at that moment for them, all is well. Think about the most magical moments in wrestling history. The Warrior coming back at WrestleMania 8. Stone Cold coming back at Backlash 2000. If you pause the video at any moment, the fans are in the middle of jumping in the air because they're so happy. Consumed by the aura of a larger-than-life wrestler making his way back to the ring. That's what wrestling is for. That's what made us like wrestling in the first place. But some of these fanboys, they seem to reject using wrestling as an escape. They seem to get mad when it's used that way. Instead, they seem to expect wrestling to be used as some sort of geek platform for them to air their personal grievances and create an environment where the product caters only to them and where this time they get to be the cool kids and they get to call the shots. It's almost like a Revenge of the Nerds thing where they've taken over wrestling and they've made it into their geek fraternity. People see wrestling as an escape. Therefore, they want larger-than-life wrestlers. A larger-than-life wrestling product is pretty much the main reason why we got into wrestling in the first place. It is a critical, non-negotiable part of what makes wrestling popular. Without Hogan, there is no Golden Era. Without Rock and Austin, there is no Attitude Era. Period. WCW would have won because they had Hogan and the NWO. There was no way that Raw was going to beat Nitro by putting on work rate matches with indie jobbers. No way! They needed the star power. But because these toxic fanboys reject wrestling as an escape, they don't care about star power. They see wrestling as their geek fraternity, so they want geeky wrestlers. They don't seem to want big names like The Rock and Brock Lesnar. They want geeky wrestlers that they can relate to and live through. And in my opinion, that's why you see modern day wrestling rosters being remade with all these awkward indie jobbers who have no charisma, no mic skills, and no star power. Because these toxic fanboys, they don't care about wrestlers being larger than life. If Brock Lesnar fought Sami Zayn, they would want Sami Zayn to win. It's all about elevating who they perceive as fellow geeks. This is Joe Hendry. Fanboys love this guy. And here he is in the ring with a Sega Dreamcast video game system. Now, here's what's going on, and think about how nerdy this is. So he brings this video game system into the ring, and he opens up the CD tray on top of the system, as you see here. And what that's supposed to represent is the middle finger. Like the CD lid standing up on the system is supposed to be the middle finger, and the other wrestler's looking offended. Think about how nerdy this is. This did not take place at some throwaway wrestling show. This was at an Impact Wrestling Premium Live event. And this is one of the guys that fanboys are going crazy for. This is who they want to be on top. Here's another fanboy favorite, Ricky Starks. This is from the front page of the WWE webpage. Now, does anybody honestly think that this guy has what it takes to be the next breakthrough mainstream superstar? This is from the front page of the WWE webpage. Now, do these look like big name superstars like Chyna and Trish Stratus? No! They look like they just won a cosplay contest. And here's Sasha Banks actually cosplaying as Sailor Moon. I think it's becoming clear why these fanboys never tell us what their criteria is for liking a wrestler. Why they cheer for all these random indie jobbers without ever telling us specifically why. It's because, in my opinion, it was never about charisma or mic skills or star power or even work rate. It's about dismantling the larger-than-life aspects of pro wrestling and rebuilding it as this niche geek community. And it seems to translate into how these fanboys cheer for the wrestlers. They don't seem to go nuts for the wrestlers like we did when the Warrior or Stone Cold came out and we're like, yeah, like going nuts. I was at a WWE event a while ago and Tegan Nox comes out and all these fanboys are like, yay, Tegan, come on, Tegan, you can do it, Tegan. And I'm like, that's how you're cheering for the wrestlers? Like you're cheering for a classmate at a high school basketball game? Like, yay, come on, you can do it, Tegan. It's like these wrestlers are not even seen as larger than life anymore. It's like they're just seen as fellow geeks from the internet community. Like, yay, you can do it. But the thing is, in my opinion, the mainstream audience still wants wrestlers to be larger than life. They still want wrestlers to be like The Rock and Brock Lesnar. So when you take away this larger than life aspect of pro wrestling, you're taking away something that got people into wrestling in the first place. So these fanboys want to support their fellow geeks. They want to stack the rosters and the main events with indie jobbers. They don't want Brock Lesnar and The Rock. They want Sami Zayn and Johnny Gargano. But the thing with that is that no one is going to believe that Johnny Gargano can beat Brock Lesnar. There's no way to believe that. There's no way to suspend disbelief for that. So in order for these fanboys to get what they want, in order for them to get their indie jobbers on top, they need to make the product absurd. They need to move away from reality and make the product ridiculous. They have to move away from wrestling looking like a sport to wrestling looking like a video game or an anime. Because if wrestling looks like a sport, there's no way somebody like Johnny Gargano beats Brock Lesnar. There's no way Sami Zayn beats Gunther. There's no way Becky Lynch beats Ronda Rousey. And there's no way Roxanne Perez beats anybody. But if these fanboys make the product absurd, if they remove common sense and make wrestling into this silly, goofy video game thing where Orange Cassidy is running around with his hands in his pockets and he's in the main event, now Johnny Gargano stands a chance against Brock Lesnar. Now Sami Zayn can beat Gunther. Now Becky Lynch can beat Ronda Rousey. And now Roxanne Perez can actually be the NXT World Champion. I mean, look at this. We're supposed to believe that the wrestler on the left is this powerful world champion that other wrestlers have to keep up with, even though everyone else in the ring, including the ring announcer, looks bigger and stronger. Chelsea Green should be dominating this match and winning easily. Yet what happens is she gets pinned by someone who looks half her size right in the middle of the ring. How are casual fans supposed to buy into this? In order to create an environment where these fanboys can get their indie favorites on top, they must fundamentally alter what wrestling is. It has to become a silly video game thing. But in my opinion, mainstream fans don't see wrestling this way. They still largely see wrestling as a combat sport. So if you turn wrestling into this goofy acrobatic stage show, you're taking away something that got people into wrestling in the first place. Toxic fanboys seem to have engaged in a number of strategies to shut out the mainstream audience. First of all, we don't even seem to be included in their language anymore. For example, when they use the word everyone. Everyone loves Indy Hartwell. Everyone's waiting to see whether Okada will sign with WWE. Everyone wants Karrion Kross back. Like, who's everyone? Is it you? Is it me? Who's everyone? When these fanboys use the word everyone, they seem to be only referring to themselves. It seems like these fanboys see themselves as the only viable fans. Therefore, a wrestler only needs to be over with them in order to be over with everyone. Fans like you and me, we don't even seem to be included in the language anymore. Another way some fanboys seem to drive away mainstream fans is by taking away from the live event experience. There seem to be fanboys that complain about every little thing that casual fans like to do. For example, you know how a lot of fans like to dress up like the wrestlers when they go to wrestling events? Like Macho Man, Stone Cold, Ric Flair, you see it all the time. They're just having a good time. But of course, there are random online fanboys complaining about it. Why are they dressed up like the wrestlers? Why are they drawing attention to themselves? Why can't they just wear regular wrestling shirts and just sit there and enjoy the show? And when you go to wrestling events, the wrestler comes out, everybody gets up, and the wrestler's high-fiving fans on their way to the ring? It's always been like that, right? Of course, there are random online fanboys complaining about that. Every time I go to a wrestling event, I have to stand up and sit down and stand up again. Why can't people just stay seated the entire show? It just seems like there are fanboys out there who are trying to just get rid of every little thing that made people get into wrestling in the first place.